we've got 600 domains internally that I just bought from a pork bun sale 6 months ago that we have Google inboxes and Outlook inboxes always warming on those. I attempted to send like 20,000 emails without validating any of them from one Outlook inbox, and I still got tons of responses back. You always have to think about, what does a spammer do and how can you do the opposite of what a spammer does?
In this Go to Market podcast episode, Eric Nowoslawski of Growth Engine X shares lead generation strategies for today's challenging landscape. He covers maintaining multiple email infrastructures, humanizing cold emails, and focusing on fundamentals rather than complex campaign structures. This show is brought to you by Leadbird, a lead generation agency specializing in performance-driven, hyper-personalized cold emails that generate demos and drive growth. Go to leadbird.io to learn more. All right, let's get started with today's show.
All right, what's going on, Eric? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Nick? Nice to be talking today.
I know, dude. I haven't caught up with you in a while, so I'm excited to just jump in and ask all these different cold email questions. I know both of us nerd out about this stuff, and even when we were in Vegas, we were just going back and forth and talking about a million things in 10 seconds. I'm excited to have this and spend the whole hour just diving deep into a whole bunch of topics, but let's get in. Obviously, in the last 12 months, I would say in my career so far, doing cold email since 2017, 2018, it's been the hardest for sure. 2 huge spam filter updates, completely tanked deliverability. With the state of cold email right now, what are you seeing working across your clients?
Yeah, and it's funny. So I agree. And you and I, we talk about this all the time. So we're definitely seeing the same things. Our philosophy has always been, if we're seeing email deliverability go down, I don't even investigate anything. I don't do Glock apps tests. I don't do any blacklist delisting or trying to get to the bottom of what happened. We just assume that the copywriting needs to be shifted because obviously you're getting too many spam complaints. And then we just set up new domains and new inboxes just immediately. And so what we've just found is that we just need to set up more domains and inboxes faster than we thought we had to in the past, and then diversify the infrastructures as well too. So we set up a lot of Gmail accounts just because we have a lot of different automations with the way that all happens. But then just shout out to a tool both of us have been using and we've been testing, and it's working well enough for the both of us. I feel comfortable shouting it out. Hypertide has been really helpful for this kind of stuff as well too. And then we'll still also use Superwave and things like that. But what I would say is I feel like we need to keep more domains warming in the background than we usually would. We'd maybe keep a third of somebody's inboxes warming in the background. Now I feel like it's not just a third, it's not just half. We need to keep double. So we're using one infrastructure and we're keeping a completely other infrastructure ready to go. So there's that. What we're also finding is that we will purposely use one infrastructure and let it warm for 2 or 3 weeks. That's seems to be the best practices. And then sometimes it's a 50-50 shot whether or not that even works. And so then what we'll do is we'll just keep the other infrastructure warming and make it go past like a 6-week warm up and make sure that happens as well too. And then if we're really in a bunch, I would say we've got 600 domains internally that I just bought from a pork bun sale 6 months ago that we have Google inboxes and Outlook inboxes always warming on those. So then if we really need to for a customer, I know Instantly just released their pre-warmed up domain, things like that. Yeah. And so many people have asked me, they say, do you think this is going to work? And I just say, we've been doing it for 6 months now. And so I just know for a fact, actually in Vegas, that was the thing that I told you, that was my big bet. And so I know that it works, and we just know that people don't really care about what domain they're receiving. They care way more about the message as well too. And so we're seeing a lot of that. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to mention about what's working right now. Oh, I feel like there's a lot of stuff going around about people saying, we should send 20 emails per day per inbox, or, don't do 50 anymore, or whatever it might be. What we're also doing is on Google inboxes in particular. You can't do this with the Hypertide and the Superwave kind of inbox, but with the Google inboxes in particular, we'll start at 30. And as long as everything's going, we found that we can go to 50. I actually just did a test, and I got to make a post about it, but I just did a test where they don't have an email set up, but they've got a list of all these people who've opted into their stuff. And they're like, oh, can you just hit this list for this Oktoberfest that's coming up? And I just thought to myself, my hypothesis is always, when it comes to email deliverability, the thing that matters the most is your bounce rate and how many people mark you as spam. And so then I just took a couple of inboxes, and we had a list of, I think it was 12,000 people to hit. Everyone was opted in. They just weren't going to be receiving an email from the domain that they thought they were opted in on. And so I sent from a couple of Google inboxes, I sent 1,000 emails from a couple of Google inboxes in a day. And because if you read Google Workspace's actual numbers,
Yeah.
the limits of the workspace accounts are actually 2 per day. So us talking about 30 to 50 is really just trying to get around the spam filter. So no spin tax, no anything. We were sending a link in the email. I sent 1,000 from that inbox, and then we got whatever click-throughs we got for this person's e-commerce brand and like all this other stuff. And then the next day I did a test, and it inboxed on my inbox, and I never sent an email. I never moved it out of spam and all those things. And so I got to write a report on it, but I'm just more and more just knowing that, yeah, the volume is important and all those things, but as long as your campaign's not being marked as spam, you can go crazy still. But if you are getting marked as spam, then it's a lot touchier. So I know I probably gave 5 minutes just about that, but that's generally a lot,
Yeah.
like a mishmash of things that we're seeing working right now.
No, tons of things to unpack there. So yeah, we're doing very similar setup. We're trying to split out our infra. And I think the one thing I've realized is that when everyone is, specifically in our space, cold emailers, right? Like I would say a lot of the new guys that are starting out, they're just sending bad offers, which are probably going to get bad engagement. And they probably don't have the funds to afford to do a lot of the personalization, the extra step for verification, like all those basic things that we consider fundamentals. And so whenever they're sending using any kind of infra, like an SMTP, or using some kind of method, or using a superwave or a hypertide or anything like that, that's whenever like that infra, in my opinion, stops to work as well as it used to. It's not saying that it doesn't, but I find like whenever a SMTP of some sort tries to commercialize and get really big, and then they start sending like a significant amount of volume, they start to have a whole bunch of like issues down the road. And yeah, I think right now Hypertide's crushing it for us. And I think like the whole entire platform and app experience is way easier and more pleasant than balancing like a whole team of VA, setting it up and all that. But I'm definitely looking at like backup systems, because I feel like at one point or a certain point, like solutions like that, just because they're commercializing it to the cold email agency space, start to become less effective. Yeah, I get, and you gave a whole slew of different things that you're doing to separate. Is there anything else that you're like, I wish you could do some testing here, or I wish I could set something up here, because I think there's some opportunity here to be able to use their infra for cold emails and get really good results?
Yeah, and I think the only other thing that we're thinking about testing, and I was messaging you about this too, and I just haven't had the time to think about it, is to set up a bunch of inboxes on the main domain or on the secondary domains. So if you have 10 domains and you're going to use 2 inboxes for sending, I've been thinking about setting up 4 and then sending only warm-up emails on the other 2, and then you're using 2 for sending. Because what we've also found is, I feel like when I first started, there was a huge difference in deliverability between the inbox and the domain. And sometimes the inbox would get flagged, but like another inbox on the domain wouldn't get flagged. And now today, that's just not the case at all. That it's just all at the domain level. And I have been thinking about how can you keep the reputation of the domain really high across everything. And I don't know, that's just, but again, the more things change, the more things stay the same is one thing I like to say. Like I said, I sent 1,000 emails in one day from one Gmail to an opted-in list that I'm assuming basically nobody marked us as spam on, even though it came from a different domain. Everybody, like, we used the same subject line they always use, and we used all the copy they always use, and I inboxed the next day on my inbox. And now, is that a double-blind study that you could take to the bank and was a perfect deliverability test? No, but it at least points the direction that the most important thing is keeping your bounce rate low and not having people mark you as spam. And so then that, whatever infrastructure you're using, and I agree with you 100% on that. So with whatever, on what you were saying with Mailreef and whatever infrastructure you're going to use, as long as you're sending good emails, you're not going to have to worry. And so that, I would say, is the biggest thing. And so even when we were using MailScale and we were testing Mailreef and all these things, all of them worked. We just found that they were just a little touchier than Google and Outlook were, because Google and Outlook don't recognize these IP addresses at all. At least if you're using Outlook and you're spamming people, if you try to inbox in a Google IP, that you at least get the card that I'm
Microsoft.
Outlook. Yeah, I'm a Microsoft IP. But then when you're this completely unknown IP, it definitely changes things. And while there's a lot still to be done on email deliverability testing and things like this, and I don't even want to say that we know everything about it. Things that we talked about are the things that are working for us, and I have demonstrable proof that they're working for us. And just more testing is just going to have to keep going, especially if we're going to stay in this space and always stay ahead of it and things like that.
Yeah. And I think that's like the thing about this space. It's like everything is constantly changing, and what happened and what you think is true today is like something that you need to be able to pivot and be quick at pivoting in 6 months. I think like another one of the things that And this is actually something that like I was thinking about across a couple of conversations I've had with different people across the last like couple weeks. One thing I've realized is that affiliate marketers are always ahead of the curve when it comes to growth hacking things, specifically on the cold email side. So there's a lot of affiliate marketers that are like they're selling affiliate offers of other guys, and they have some kind of hidden setup on how they go about emails and like what they do on the email infra side. Because their whole entire goal is let me send this email as many people as I can for as cheap as I possibly can, but still have great deliverability. And they do a ton of like black hat, gray hat stuff, and they get the results. But they're usually ahead of us when it comes to what's that growth hack? What's that thing that is allowing me to take vulnerability in this system to be able to send this amount of emails for this cheap? And I was talking to my friend Martin, and he was like, one of the things that he does is he constantly just looks at his inbox and sees what are the cold emails that I'm getting and why are they landing in here? And what are the things in my spam folder that are commonalities and why are they landing as spam? And so I was after I had that conversation, I was like, oh, that's a good thing to do, real data. And so I started looking at my inbox, and what I noticed was, dude, I was getting so many at gmail.com emails that were cold emails that were all landing in my primary. So I think like one thing, and I used to do this way back in the day, but I think one thing that's going to start coming back is like sending emails from just plain Gmail accounts, and a ton of them. Because for some reason they're inboxing right now. And so that's one test that I want to run next week is like, what's our result for like our internal campaigns is running from an at gmail.com account and seeing how that does. And it's obviously super cheap to do. And you have to be a little bit more of a technical developer type person to be able to set up that infra and be able to scale it. But yeah, that's one of the random tests that I wanted to do. The other test I wanted to do, we were talking about this earlier, there's other lead gen agencies that are doing something in SendGrid, some kind of vulnerability there. And we both know that Beehive has great deliverability with SendGrid newsletters. Like we're getting added in and opted in, and they're all landing in our primary day in, day out. So I think there's like something there that I want to like take a look at and poke around in. But yeah, like right now, our deliverability for everyone that's listening, or like what our infra looks like, we're using Hybridtide. We basically set up 2 orders for each client. So we'll have one that we use in the first month of the campaign, and the one that we set on the side to use in the second month of the campaign. And then we're basically flipping. So we're doing like an A/B flip. And right now, what I'm excited for is with V's inside of Smartly, they already have smart delivery. I forgot what they call it. What do they call it?
Smart delivery. Yeah.
Smart delivery. And once they have that in the API, like what I would like to do is do like basically like use Hybridtide on one campaign, and you make your campaigns end in 30 days. And as soon as it completes, it runs the smart delivery test and it sees, hey, this domain is still good, or these inboxes are still good. And if it is, just keep it on warm up for another 30 days. The second campaign, that second month, use a second set of Hybridtide inboxes and whatnot. But let's say it is bad after that first month, just because some offers, like they suck, like they get marked as spam, like there's nothing you can really do there. Yeah. Now, hey, it's not inboxing. I have 30 days with my second set of inboxes. And in those 30 days, I could buy and set up something with Hybridtide within 4 hours inside of their platform. Great. And then be putting it in warm up within 4 hours and have it on warm up for 30 days. And then just keep doing that A/B flip. That's how I'm thinking about tackling a lot of the deliverability issues. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
No, and so I was even going to say for anybody listening to this, we're in total agreement because you and we went back and forth on making this. I maybe just have more anxiety than you do, and we're setting up 4 setups for each customer, and then we're also setting up Google accounts. And then we'll use 2 at one time, and then we'll flip to the other 2, and then we also have the Google accounts going as well. But also, I think our business models are just different in the way that we've got more of a margin up front that I can just take that risk. And so then that's just, we're just going overboard, but still very much the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if Omer's told you this yet, but what they're about to make on the update on Hybridtide, because we've been doing a lot of their testing for them. I can just tell he has access to my smart lead account. He can see all our data and stuff. So one order now, you can include 4 domains in there. 4 or 2, I can't remember. And so one order, it'll basically be 100 inboxes, but there'll be 4 domains, and then it'll be 20 per or 25 per each domain. And then, so 2 orders would be like 8 domains, and then 200 inboxes total. And so it helps you still send the same amount of volume, but now there's less volume coming out of each individual domain, which is where I think
And that's what we're talking about, all of those inbox. I don't think there's really much inbox reputation left on an inbox level, unless you're a large organization with a bunch of email volume and all those things. And so that's what we're talking about for sure. I think there's a lot to be said about the domain level of the reputation. I was even asking Omar too, that I think domain age is going to start becoming more and more. Yeah. And so, like I've already said, we purchased over 600 domains. It's actually, I'm not even sure how many domains, because anytime Pork One has a sale, we just buy like another 200. So
the .co, yeah,
the .co sales, yeah. So I don't even know what we're at this point, but I'll just buy really generic domains in case we get slapped and we'll put inboxes on them so they're warming up this entire time. And then in case Gmail really rolls out like warnings of, hey, this domain is less than a month old, or the spam filter won't let anything really do a lot of sending if it's a month old, we're preparing to be able to just be prepared for our clients that will have
Yeah.
a ton of domains for them to choose from, but they're super generic, so it should always be fine. Tons of domains for them to choose from, and then they're aging a ton too. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing that we're just planning for too.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to talk to you about. So I feel a year and a half ago, like the spin text that was needed was just simply, you could spin your greeting, you could put a quote in the end of your email, you could put spin close, and you'd be mostly fine. You have a level of spin text in there, your variables are good. But now, and I think this is more important, I think this is where your superpower is. It's like unique individual messages. You want to start speaking on that and how that impacts everybody?
Yeah, and I don't have great data. The only data that I have is like you and I would be talking about this.
Yeah.
So I don't really have great data about this other than one point that I'm going to talk about. But when I first started getting into cold email, I had no clue what I was doing, and I sent, and I could tell that story if we want, but I attempted to send like 20,000 emails without validating any of them from one Outlook inbox, and I still got tons of responses back.
Yeah.
And I could tell that story a little bit more. But when I was then getting into cold email as a service, we were never really using Spintax because I never saw it as a necessary thing that needs to get put in. And then by the time that then somebody created a test that really opened my eyes to you needed Spintax, by that point, GPT 3.5 was out. And so we were already basically rewriting all of our emails with AI anyway. And so I never had demonstrable proof that, yes, this is the way to do it. But when that person, it was actually Harris Kenny, he released a Spintax test with Bob on SmartLead, and they proved that there wasn't maybe a huge increase in reply rate necessarily, but the inboxes lasted far longer if you use Spintax versus if you didn't. And so then by then we were just using AI anyway. And so all of my emails were being changed, but not because we were Spintaxing them, but because we were using AI. And I knew from us talking, you would tell me about you would have Google admin consoles getting shut down and Outlook admin consoles getting shut down and all these other things. And then I would just be, we've never lost any of these admin consoles. Yeah. And so then that was me. You really opened my eyes to that I was like, oh, this AI has to be making a difference, because it's not like we have God's gift to customers and offers in our agency. Like we still have a mix of really great offers and then things that feel a little spammier and those kind of things too. And so the fact that we never lost panels and then you guys were losing panels, that made me think that the AI is definitely making a huge difference. And now it's just, as we keep seeing more and more things, I think it's just going to become more and more prevalent. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And to touch on the panel thing, so this is like something I would love your feedback on as well. So we figured out why all our panels got shut down, because we're spinning up a lot more panels so we can see what happened. So we had two individuals on our team, and like this was instruction by me, so there was no issue there. And this is the funny thing too. It's basically what was happening is they were from two different locations, one from the Philippines, one from South Africa. And so the login on the administrative account from two different locations was causing it to get disabled. And I think that started to become a very major thing in the last like 6 months to a year. Because when I first started in 2017, dude, I would log into my team's account all the time. They would log into mine. Like, we would spin up inboxes here, we'd spin up inboxes there. There was like no red flag or issue there. But now it's like, if on that, like specifically on Outlook, Microsoft, when you sign in into a panel, the tenant, the admin administrative login thing, you have to sign in from the same IP every single time, specifically if you're cold emailing, because if you don't, it will get disabled within the next 48 hours. And even with people like Omer and seeing how like our setup is as well, like we have to use like proxies and put them all on Go Login and have individual profiles and log in through there and all that stuff. And it's just way more difficult than it used to be, and way like there's more things that you have to watch out for. Yeah, I guess like in terms of just like how you guys are, I guess if you want to talk more on just like how you guys are going about like logging in and being able to manage that infra across your team, like how do you tackle it?
Yeah. And so it's funny because until you told me that, we just logged in, and So I would log in from New Jersey, and then I have somebody on my team in Texas. She would log in, and then we had somebody from India logging in too. And it just never really mattered to us. But then you brought it to my attention, and I said, oh, we really need to handle that. And so, I mean, you guys put us on. We just use Go Login and IP Royal to just make sure that we're always logging in from the same space. But then you can also change a ton. it's also very helpful to then just make a admin level account on all of the panels and give them to everybody on your team. So then
Yeah,
they're dedicated to logging in. Because you always have to think about, what does a spammer do and how can you do the opposite of what a spammer does? And so a
agreed.
spammer is logging in from one log from 6 different places. But it's
Hmm.
totally normal to send somebody a log, give them admin access, and then they log in from over there. So then that's the other way we'd mitigate it too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then with a lot of the campaigns that you guys are running right now, I know you're famous for all the Clay YouTube videos and all the stuff you do with Clay and the really creative like campaigns, which I absolutely love. What are you seeing in terms of just like structure for like your average client with an average offer that you're implementing to make sure that their campaign has the highest chance of success past deliverability, more on the content and like how you're structuring their offer and pulling in all the variables and whatnot?
Yeah, and so I would say I do a lot of this kind of thinking nowadays versus the workflow clay table building. Because when I first started my agency, I was obsessed with how could we do the craziest, off the wall, most nuts workflow that we could possibly do for a customer. And then what I started realizing is I would sometimes spend literally 4 hours building these workflows, and then we would launch, and then we wouldn't get any positive responses. And so I really think a lot now about just the messaging. And so in our agency, and for anybody watching this, I guess there's two ways that outbound campaigns aren't going to work. One is you're not getting enough leads, and then two is you're not converting those leads. And if you don't convert those leads, it doesn't really keep me up at night that I got you the leads. That's my job
Yeah.
to be able to do. But if I don't get you leads, that keeps me up at night. And I think about this a
Hmm.
lot. And so then you break that down into two more. Then it's, okay, why aren't you getting leads? It's either because the offer that you're working with just isn't meant for cold email. So I would say cybersecurity is just one that we just do not do at all. And I could talk about why I think that's the case. But then two, I think it's you just didn't try hard enough. And so I think a lot right now about how we can create a process in our agency where if we have a customer go through this gauntlet of 15 different campaigns, what are the odds that they're not going to get leads? And I'm trying to make that as close to zero as we possibly can, where hopefully the customer can look at us and they can say, yeah, you guys tried everything. We're just not going to do cold email anymore, versus, hey, you guys didn't try enough. We're going to go hire another agency. I think that's the worst outcome that you could possibly have. And so as far as structure, we have a lot of different structures, but I would say all of them unite around, hey, I noticed something about your company that made me reach out. John Barrows talks about this all the time. He calls it the why you, why now line. So we always start with that. And then we'll have either we'll pitch the offer there, or we'll ask a pain question, or we'll do something in that line to transition between it from what we noticed. And then we'll either ask a question or we'll say something like, not sure if it's fit, but we're helping companies like you do blah, 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 blah. And then in the third line, we're usually sharing an outcome-based case study where we're just saying the reason I think it's important that I reach out is because we just helped somebody create like 150% ROI and whatever it might be, and all of those things. And would it be worth it to chat? Will Allred from Lavender was just posting some stuff that we're in the early days of testing that is also working pretty well too. Is not like everyone is using a light CTA now around, would this be interesting, or should we send some more information, or all these other things. And then he was saying to switch your CTA to something like, am I even barking up the right tree here, or something, to just
Yeah.
even see if you're even talking to the right person. Those things have been working pretty well. And then I would say the other thing I think about a lot is case studies versus I feel like I talk about a lot of things, and I'm not sure if you could go past the hour. I can, but I don't want to.
No,
I don't want to keep it on just
we're
this.
going through it all.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So then I'll actually go through it all. So one, I have a YouTube video where I go through all of the campaign templates that we just put everybody through, and maybe we can link that somewhere or whatever it might be. Then there's two things that I'm really thinking about outside of the why you, why now line, pain agitation slash sharing offer, and then case study, and then just call to action. One thing I'm thinking about is demand capture versus demand generation. I feel like I first saw this formalized by the client ascension guys, so I just want to,
Yeah.
yeah, and
I'm just
just give,
watching his stuff yesterday because I have like I have a whole bunch of his content from Client Ascension from being one of the coaches in there, and I was
yep.
reviewing. And it's funny, I asked his permission if I could take some of those demand capture versus demand gen stuff and put it in our internal employee training, because I think it's like you're about to explain it right now, but it's such a fundamental piece to make cold emails work.
Exactly. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about here, demand capture versus demand generation, a lot of it, every offer lands on a spectrum of demand capture versus demand generation in some regard. And a lot of it has to do with how commoditized is the offer and how educated is the buyer. And so if you are a bookkeeping service. Every business in the world knows that a bookkeeping service exists. And it's hard to say like, oh, we're so much faster than everybody else. And you say that in an email and there's no real way to prove it. And that definitely lands on the side of demand capture. And so what we try to do is we try to do things that will help generate demand. So we try to make the angle different so that we can generate demand, or we change the list and we just still lean into the demand capture. And so if we're leaning into the demand capture and we're changing the list, for bookkeeping, a perfect example of that is you can reach out to CEOs in the United States with companies less than 20 people and reach out to them about bookkeeping services. Or you could also reach out to CEOs in the United States with less than 20 people who founded their company in less than 2 years ago. They don't have a finance and accounting person on their team right now, and this is the first time they've ever been a founder before. Then it's okay, that's a way smaller list. Don't get me wrong, way smaller list. But those people, you have a lot better things to say to them to say,
Yeah.
okay, hey, we're
Way bigger
bookkeeping.
pay.
Yeah. We're a bookkeeping service. I saw that you guys were recently founded, and congrats. This is your first time running a business like this. How are you thinking about your finance operation? All that stuff totally can change the message on that side. And so now you're using the list to write that message, and it's still the demand capture offer. Like they have to still need a bookkeeper to be able to engage with that. And then there are some demand capture offers that just work anyway. So we talk about this. This is one of our favorite niches, and we've both made YouTube videos on it, so I feel comfortable talking about it. But so if you're trying to reach out to businesses about selling their business, there is nothing I can do, nothing I can say to generate your demand and make you think, oh, you know what? I woke up this morning and there's no way I was going to sell my business, but this email, I'm now going to change my mind and I'm going to sell my business now. And so then that's just a campaign that, although it's a demand capture campaign, you just get enough shots on goal. You're just going to get people who say yes, because that's just, and sometimes people just want that. And so it's just because an offer is demand captured doesn't mean it's bad. So then on the flip side with demand generation, then we're talking about an offer. A lot of times, like I said, it's less commoditized and they don't precisely know how it happens. They don't know how to do it and all these things. Or you could also lean into your case studies a lot, and you can generate your demand based off of your case studies too. And so there used to be a hack in LinkedIn that we used to do where I could basically guarantee that we could get like over 2,000 people registered for a LinkedIn event. And it was around for 3 months, but I could basically just email people and say, hey, I've cracked a way where we can guarantee that we could get a LinkedIn event with 2,000 registrants of your ICP. And you can run a webinar and you can add them to your email list. Here's a screenshot of proof of me doing it. Would you want to talk about how? Perfectly on the demand generation side of offers, because they didn't know it was possible. It's incredibly interesting of how did you just get all these people to just join this event out of nowhere, and it's not commoditized. Nobody else is doing it, right? And then, but then on the flip side, if then we were to take agency offers and I were to just say, hey, I saw on your website that you are trying to get connected with VPs of finance and whatever it might be. We use AI to write all of this. We can help. I wrote out some outbound ideas for you, and then we use AI to write out 3 outbound ideas. The reason I say this is because we help a lot of companies run their outbound campaigns. I'm going to link my case studies below and show you how long we've been doing this. And then we'll put in our case studies with, we've run outbound campaigns for Instantly. We're the people who run outbound campaigns for Clay.com. We run it for the Pilot.com, for Reddit, like all these other companies. And so then it's, okay, just put that in, and then you'll generate demand that way, because it's, okay, they're super serious. They've got great case studies. I want to work with them, versus all of the other emails that you're going to be getting.
Yeah.
And so I'd let you add anything on demand capture and demand generation there too.
Yeah. I think like the way I think about it is demand gen is like when you could just take what it is and put it in front of someone in your ICP, and then it just immediately catches their attention and they immediately get interested, and they're like, I need that. And it's the same thing. Like I could literally just send emails saying, hey, I can get you leads on a pay-per-lead basis, and we'll just instantly get a lead per every 200, 300 contacts that we reach out to, which is solid for a very saturated offer, because it's just that. It's pay per lead lead gen. Like people want that. And I think a lot of clients, when they try to hire a lead gen agency, they don't have an offer. They just have a service. Like that's all. Like they're just a bookkeeper. There's nothing else to it. They're just a bookkeeper, and they don't know how to position their service into an offer or create an offer around their service. And so, yeah, in that bookkeeper scenario, I think it's like, they just want to reach out to founders and say, hey, we can do bookkeeping for you. And there's millions of them. There's millions of bookkeepers out there. Not millions, probably like hundreds of thousands of them out there that are like literally, they can do exactly what they do. So then it's, okay, I think what you said is perfect. Go reach out to the first founder or a first time founder that's 20 in headcount, has a company that's growing, and then basically say, hey, your pain point that's going to happen soon is that you don't have any financial processes in place. and you're probably going to have to overpay on tax or whatever it is. Like you could build a messaging that hits a pain point around that. I
Yes.
think the other thing too is just like to just do the opposite of what everyone else is pitching. Everyone else is pitching, hey, we just do bookkeeping. Send an email saying, hey, I'd like to do an audit of your finances and give you a valuation on your business. And then
So
it gets the calls going. It gets people interested because it's not just bookkeeping. It's, oh, like I would love to see how much my business is worth and how much it's valued. And then it's, oh, hey, look, this is how much it's valued on the sales call, right? The bookkeeper can say, hey, this is how much it's valued. But by the way, you're missing a lot because a lot of your stuff isn't categorized correctly. And because of that, people are going to look at your P&L and say, this is sloppy and you have no financial process. And they're not going to give you as much of a valuation as you want. Let me do that for you for $500 a month. Would you be interested? Like I send you a P&L every first of the month. I'll create all your income statements. That's amazing. Great. So I think that's another way to look at it. I think with a lot of like clients, and this is common in lead gen space, they hire us because they can't figure out how to generate leads. Obvious. And I think a lot of times, and I made a video of this, is they shouldn't actually hire a lead gen agency. They should figure out what their offer is and validate their offer. And then come to guys like me and you and say, hey, look, I have a proof of concept here. Can you scale this to the moon for me and get my
yeah.
sales team like fully taken care of?
And that's why some of our qualifications now are, have you run an outbound campaign that worked in the past that you want us to scale? Or do your competitors have a growing SDR team? And I'll actually have them pull up the competitors to just make sure that they're actually investing in outbound already, because you're totally right on that. And then two other things that we think about, obviously lead magnets, like if you say you're going to do something for free, that always cooks. But it's crazy that in our world, so we made a lead magnet where it's very easy with the databases that we have. It's very easy for me to just give away every person who is newly hired at every company that it's director level and above. Super easy for me to just give away that information. And I turn that into a lead magnet. And then I literally just email people and I'm just like, hey, I run an outbound agency. And the most common data point that people want us to target by is new hires. So I made this Airtable for you. It's got all the new hires in it. I just want you to have it. And then people are just like, thanks. And then we just put them on a newsletter. And I'm just like, oh, hey, do you want to receive this every Monday? Because we send it to everybody every Monday. Then we send the list on Monday. And then I also send a YouTube video of mine. And that's how we expand like the reach using cold email on that side. Lead magnets, we could go on and on about that, but the expert to really talk to you about that is like just reading Alex Mo's books and going into that. The other thing that you mentioned that then got me thinking too is another thing we think about is how can we get in front of the objection in the email that they're going to have for us. So I read this thing that was in my town that I thought was fantastic from the local fire department. They had a banner and they were recruiting for the local fire department. And they said, we're not recruiting heroes, we're just recruiting neighbors. And I just thought that was just so brilliant for the fire department, because the main objection everyone will have if you want to join the fire department is, I'm not a hero. I can't do that, but I am a neighbor. And so they lean straight into that. And so then to bring this to actually like B2B cold email, I had a friend reach out yesterday and he was saying a campaign wasn't working. And there was some kind of offer around building, you invest in a done for you Amazon store, and then after 60 days you're going to get an ROI, otherwise you get your money back. And he was saying, this is a great offer. If you make this investment and it doesn't make money in 60 days, you're just going to get your money back. And I was like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. If you were that good at setting up these Amazon stores, why wouldn't you just keep setting up these Amazon stores? Why do you need other people to finance these Amazon stores for you? If you're genuinely that good at it, why don't you just keep setting those things up? And so then another kind of template that we do is, I'm becoming a big fan lately of writing a small message to just get somebody's interest and then putting a bunch more context below the signature so that you still get that nice short message up top, but then you don't have to get the friction of them saying, oh, I want more information. And then you got to respond as fast as possible and all this other stuff. I'll just say, hey, I'm going to link more information below the signature. And then below the signature, we'll put 6 case studies down there. Or
I love that.
we'll outline, and I told this for somebody I was coaching and he said it 3x their responses. So I feel comfortable talking about it. I haven't done this, but I advise to do this. You could do this with case studies, or then you could also do it with the level of detail you go into your campaigns. So for us, like you could also put in and you could say, hey, this is our process that we would run for you. And then, and you could use AI to help generate a lot of these things, but you could say, first we'd set up these email addresses and both of us, we own like 26,000 inboxes or something like that, give or take on a given time. So we manage 26,000 inboxes. I already know that this is going to work. We have a process where we scrape from Sales Navigator and we use Apollo, and then we enrich with ClearOut and Prospeo and all these other things. And then below the signature, you just go super hard on what your mechanism is and how much different it is because of the level of detail there. And so then that's another way. So we're just thinking about what's going to be the main objection. So the main objection is, one, why wouldn't you just be like, if you are this good at setting up Amazon stores, why don't you just do it yourself? So you got to show case studies towards that, and you have to show the mechanism towards that, and then you also have to prove that, like, if after 60 days goes by they don't get their money back, then you're actually going to give them your money back. And so I think a lot about objections. And then I alluded to it too, the last thing I think a lot about these days is leaning super hard into case studies, and then also using mechanisms too, where, so we had an offshore talent company that we were working with, and we were leaning super hard into case studies, and nobody cared. And then it just hit me. I was like, if I were to receive this email, why wouldn't I care? And it's because what I'm more concerned about is that they're just picking their best case studies, and they're just going to give me a bad person. So then I said, hey, send me your process for finding these people. And so then instead of leaning into the case studies, we were just leaning super hard into, all right, first, we have people apply. 90% of the people don't even make it at that point. Then the second step that we do is then we give them all a task that they get paid for. And they have 4 things that they have to do, and we gamify it. So we're looking for certain things about their attention to detail. This entire time, we do 3 meetings between them. And if they don't show up on time for the 3 meetings, they also get cut from the process. Finally, they work in our company before they work in your company. So then we also see how they work as well too. So we'll take 100 applicants, and we only find 1 person before we give them to you. That email is doing far better than the case studies. Like, literally, like, it wasn't working before that. And then we changed it last week. And then he messaged me today, and he's like, we closed our first deal from this. And I was like, okay, great, this is working. And so
one thing I would say on
Mhm.
recruiters on those campaigns, and I think this is a common issue with a lot of people, they haven't done like the market research on understanding like their customers' pain points. And it's like a lot of these, I would say, I call them like general service providers. Like they don't have an offer, they just have a service, and like they just assume things without actually testing them. And so like with the recruiter, for example, like they're like, oh yeah, we could staff every position in the world, and it's cool, but okay, let's pick one that's actually in demand. Then it's okay, let's choose that one in demand, and they give us a job title that they think is good, and then it's just like, hey, we can staff this position. But then it's, you don't understand that person's pain point for hiring that, and it makes it hard for us to incorporate the message. And so basically, like, and this is why I'm such a huge fan of ChatGPT, because now we're never relying on the client's knowledge, because a lot of times companies and just like a lot of startups, they just don't know their market well enough. And then you're able to go in there and figure out, hey, why do people actually hire someone for this role? And what's the bottleneck for someone hiring into this role? And you can incorporate that into the copy. So like a great example of this is these offshore talent sourcing agencies. Like the thing I would look at is, what are the jobs in America that they're hiring in-house, but it could be virtual, and it could be someone in the Philippines or in India, and it would be way cheaper if it was there. But because of like the limitations of the business owner not knowing how to staff from overseas, they hire in America, they hire local, and they're paying $30 an hour. And if you just literally write that into ChatGPT, it'll probably give you like 10 different types of roles. And a lot of them will be like front desk assistants, like a medical assistant when you walk into a doctor's office, like the person at the front desk calling their insurance companies to say, hey, this is the person's information, is there an insurance checkout, whatever it is, right? And it's awesome. Now you know that, let's create an offer around that, and let's build the pain point and the target around that. Let's email these doctors and these practice owners and say, hey, we can replace your front desk assistant for $8 an hour. And guess what? They're HIPAA compliant. They can call your insurance faster, quicker, and you'll save X amount of dollars per year. And now you just took this general recruiter, built a whole offer for them, and now you can scale that via cold emails. And
yeah, and even as you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, we got to do that better, because you're totally spot on about that. And I even taken notes for myself of going that deep, because you're totally right. That's where the best campaigns shine, right? The best campaign I've ever made in my entire life. We were running a campaign for Forbes, and we were at a conference, and the conference wouldn't give the list of the speakers, and then they also wouldn't connect them with them. So then Forbes was like, hey, can you scrape the speakers, and then can you cold email people to get interview slots with us? And so they're like, do you think this is going to work? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Are we going to email a list of people who are definitely attending the event, and I'm going to be able to put in the subject line interview with Forbes? Yeah, guys, I think this is going to work. And so it was like 1 out of every 3 people we reached out to, we would get a positive. Yeah. And it was like, and so when you look at those campaigns though, it's like, of course this is going to work. And then when I post about that, sometimes people say, yeah, but come on, we don't have the brand like Forbes, and we don't have this, and we don't have that. And I always remind them, you got to look at all the other factors around it. The list was super, super perfect. The offer was amazing. They were speaking exactly to the people that they wanted to be speaking to. There was a lot of refinements made in that it just every camp, exactly like what you were talking about. Pick the things that are in demand and then
Yeah.
build offers around that and everything. I mean, you're totally spot on there.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of like business owners that just try to outsource their lead gen, a lot of times they're not successful in it. And it's not because of the lead gen agency. Like, I mean, I think all of us can figure out really quickly how to set up email infra, how to send the email, make sure we land in primary, do all like the lead list scraping, like that stuff now because we've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. But I think a lot of people that hire lead gen agencies, they would become, I have a way higher chance of success if they just figured out what is that thing that's going to crack cold traffic and not have any ego in it. Cause I think a lot of people come in there, they're like, we guarantee customer success. We guarantee customer satisfaction. And it's like, everyone's been running that since 2000s. Like that thing, no, that's not something that's special. That's the bare
Yeah,
minimum. Like you should be customer satisfaction guaranteed regardless. So it's not special. And I think a lot of people just miss out on that. And they're like, no, I don't want to adjust this offer. It's going to make us look bad. And it's,
I know.
dude, you need
And
this. You need this to grow.
And if somebody has already worked with, if somebody comes to us and they say, yeah, we've worked with 2 lead gen agencies before and it hasn't worked, I always tell them, I'm like, hey, go to Instantly, use their done for you email setup, pull a list from Apollo, use export list, and just do it yourself. Because you're gonna, and in my sales calls, I can show you recordings of this. I always tell people, I'm like, hey, there's 3 things you can do. You can hire us, but we're really expensive, and I just need you to know that. And we have a process, and we can talk about that process. Or you could do this yourself for $200 a month, and you could just do all the experimentation for you, and it's just going to take your time. Or you could go to Leadbird, and we actually literally say, or just go to Leadbird, and they'll be able to run the campaigns for you, and you'll be able to just use them to save time, but you're going to get more shots on goal. But we're expensive, and just you need to just be aware of that. And that's always, and I always say that when they don't have a really well figured out offer, or we've never run a campaign for somebody like that in the past, or they're not confident in working with us and things like that. I'm like, it's totally fine. It's totally fine if you're not confident in working with us. Go do it yourself, or work with a company like Leadbird that does it on pay for performance. Because for those who are listening, I charge a retainer, and Nick does a setup fee plus pay for performance. And it's like, pay for performance. If you don't know what you need, pay for performance is perfect. Because then
Yeah.
it's like, then you got people writing some of the copy for you, but you're also paying for performance. So jump in there, do some of the copy yourself if you want to. And you can be doing that experimentation, or you could always set up your own Instantly account and figure these things
Every
out.
time.
Because it does feel like a money hack. If you could figure out how to drive leads from cold, it does feel like, oh, okay, this
Yeah.
is great. But it's tough to crack, and it's a really tough thing to crack. And cold email is definitely one of the best ways to do it. You just got to pick the right avenue for your budget and how much time you have and all that other stuff.
Yeah, 2 things to say, and then I want to switch the topic a little bit. So it's funny too, because like I find like even if you have a bad offer, and I actually love your take on this. So like people are against like stupid personalization, right? Stupid personalization being like something in the PS where it mentions like a recommendation that they got on LinkedIn, or mentioning like a colleague that's really relevant to that person in the email and stuff. And what I found is that, and we've actually done the data on this, and obviously we sent 1 million plus emails a month. Like we had all of, like we use Quicklines, obviously, internal tool, not available to the public anymore. But we use that internally across all of our emails. And we had it off for a month because we were making adjustments to it. And our positive reply percentage dropped across the board. And so I think that's another thing too. It's if you're in a competitive market with a very saturated offer, and you can't figure out how to reposition your offer in any capacity, and you're not really like, you don't have the know-how of how to like really adjust the lead list so that you can make it a little bit more specific and all that. One of the easiest lifts that you could do is figure out how to put that stupid personalization in there. Cause like it does work. And it may be a 6 out of 10 good, but it does work, specifically if you don't incorporate it into the actual main message and you're just putting it in the PS. Like that does so good for us on like some of our clients that just have a little bit generic offers.
It's you'd be shocked. So the only campaigns we'll run the local restaurant thing with is when we're targeting local business owners, because tech people they don't see through it a little bit, and it'll help increase responses. But then you get a lot of people who are like, "Come on, you didn't actually write this." They can just see through it. But so for local business owners, you would be shocked how many times we send emails to local business owners, and they will say something about the restaurant PS, and they will completely ignore the rest of the message. And I'm like, wait, I guess, is that a no? Because like you didn't say anything about the offer that we made, but they're like, oh my God, that's a great restaurant. You should totally check it out. And so I agree with you too. And so we will try to do things that are at least, so we have found that My personal favorite, that we put this into all of our breakup emails, and sometimes we even put it into email one. This is one of the templates that we have. And then I saw you're using it too, is we're reaching out to somebody and then we'll throw in their PS, by the way, I know there's a lot of people over there. Should I be reaching out to this person or this person instead? It's so simple, but that's not really a thing that people automate, because unless you have quick lines or
Yeah.
you have Clay, you like Apollo doesn't let you manipulate data in that way.
Yeah.
And it's also free to do that in Clay. You can just use this function in Clay called look up multiple records in other table. And then what you just do is just look up multiple records in your table. And because then that's another thing too. We don't, like, if there's 6 people at a company and they're all on our list, we just hit all of them. And that's a fear that I feel like people have in cold email. That's just never been a problem.
Yeah.
They'll be like, what if they all, they find out that we send an email to all of them? And I'm just like, oh yeah. Because how many times in your work life have you sat down at the end of the day with your coworkers and you said, okay, guys, before we leave, let's compare what cold emails we all got, and we'll tell each other which vendors we're going to work with and which, like, that has never happened ever.
Never.
And we'll oftentimes have multiple contacts. So if you just use in Clay, look up multiple records in other table, but just do it in the same table and do it based off of the website, you'll easily get other people who already fit because they're already on your list. And then you could just inject them super easy. And that is a thing that sometimes funny, like the same customers that want us to say, hi, my name is this, and I'm the founder of blah, blah, blah. Or they want us to say, I'm really impressed with your work at company name. They'll sometimes have problems with, those same customers will have problems with saying, PS, let me know if I got this wrong and I should reach out to this person or this person instead, which is mind blowing to me. So
Yeah.
I agree with you on that sentiment that it does work. And demonstrably, I know for a fact, I have this data. I know for a fact on those private equity campaigns we run, we'll put in the first line, we'll put, hey, I was about to call phone number, but I figured email would be easier. And then in the PS line, we'll put, if we ever get connected about selling your business, I'd love to take you out to this restaurant. And then we like name the restaurant and everything. Then we tried running that without those lines, and we got 4 times more responses with those simple personalizations. With 4.0 Mini now, because people are like, are you scraping Yelp for that? I'm like, no. 4.0 Mini knows the top restaurant in every location. Yeah, it already knows. So just ask it. So for scraping the phone number, which is essentially free, and then for 4.0 Mini, which is 0.0000007 cents to generate that, you can 4x your response rates. And sometimes it takes little tweaks like that. And then sometimes I have stories of us going completely overboard and getting 0. There's a YouTube video I made that, and I'm just going to finish this. I know you wanted to talk about another topic, but there's a YouTube video I made where we were taking products from the website, and then we were finding the average order value, and we would name the products. So we would say, hey, I noticed your average order value seems like it's somewhere around this. And if somebody bought these 3 products, considering your similar web traffic, I think that we can help you grow revenue by XYZ, blah, blah, blah. This is how we do it. Would you want to talk? And that campaign bombed. It was like insane how much that bombed. And I was looking at it, and I was like, why did this campaign bomb? And then I realized, I reread it, and I was like, oh, because nobody would ever send an email like this. So we shifted it, and we were like, oh, hey, I was taking a look at your website, and I was really interested in the product 1, product 2, product 3 line of products. The question I had is, it seems, and then that was our preview text. And then we'd say, the reason I asked this is because I was wondering how many units you guys are moving of those a month, considering I think your average order value is around this much, and similar web. And then we would even put in parentheses to make it look conversational. We would say something like, a similar web said you have this much traffic. And then we put in parentheses, but I know it's not accurate. I hate similar web too. Then we would say, I think we can help you grow your revenue with this. This is the mechanism, blah, blah, blah. Way different feeling of the email, except it was all the same data points. And then that email worked against the other ones, right? And even when you might even have personalizations that you're just using in the wrong way. So if you use the restaurant thing as the opener, that might kill your whole email. But the fact that you use it in the PS line totally switched it up. So that's another thing too for people, is to shift around where you're doing your personalizations and everything.
Yeah, and I think you've also brought up a good point. And I think this is a big thing right now. And I tweeted about this and put it on LinkedIn, I think yesterday. And tons of people were like,
oh, are you going to talk about the cheesy lines?
The cheesy line.
Yeah.
So right now, and it's like the level of sophistication has just risen, right? People are writing generally better cold emails, right? Like from the content that we both post, which is we're telling people, be short, be direct, make it somewhat personalized, and send it. And so I think in a lot of markets where a lot of people are selling into, And I think e-commerce is a great example of one. They're getting every single cold email with all these crazy different offers and guarantees and these really short direct emails that are arguably really good, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But they
They
just get
follow templates and everything. Yeah.
3 to 5 of those. Even if it's personalized, it still doesn't do good because they just get those so often, every single day in, day out. And one of the things that we tested and we just saw, it took me a while to even, because if you asked me a year ago if I would do this, I would not. And now we do it and it works. And it's basically just like, you just put in these cheesy intro lines to make it look like your email is being sent by an actual human versus like someone that's trying to use direct response copy. And so like our intro lines are like literally like, hey, I know your inbox is busier than a bee's nest or something like that. Something stupid. And like we have, if you go to ChatGPT, put in intro lines that are cheesy, that follow this kind of structure or something, it'll give you like 20 of those. And guess what? You could syntax it. So now you have an extra variable in your sentence and it reads off like kind of corny. It just catches them off guard. And then they think, oh, this guy's a human on the other side of the screen. And is it just mass spamming me with all this crazy stuff? And they're more open to hearing you out. And so that was like one of the things that I would have never done it. I saw someone's campaign where they did it and they had a high level of success. And then I was like, oh, this is genius. And I get why this works. And that we replicate
Yeah,
it.
because I think another thing too is to just try to make people smile. Well, and another thing, because I've never even tried to pass, because I'm not even sure what clients would say, yeah, or to do that. But because sometimes we get so much pushback on things we already proposed. But
Yeah.
we're sending a campaign that I can already agree with this. We're sending a campaign right now where we're saying, we're basically asking who should I speak to on the team to talk about 2025 planning. And then we're putting in the PS, as I'm writing this, isn't it crazy that I'm talking about 2025 already? I still think 2015 was 3 years ago. And people are like positively responding and commenting on that PS line. And so I definitely agree with that. And then another thing that I like to do is in one of our templates, I call it the meme template, where we'll send a meme and I'll basically make the preview text. So it's like the subject line is meme for you. And then the preview text, I try to make it so that it's something like, does this meme encapsulate what it's like working on your team? Or does this meme encapsulate your CRM process? Or does this meme encapsulate your ads process? Or like whatever it might be. So in the preview text, we're showing them that there's going to be a meme in the email. And if it were me, I'd want to see what the meme was. And so then we just send the meme. And my favorite meme to send at this point is if you just go to a meme generator and you just type in Suez Canal, it's the one where the bulldozer is trying to dig out the big, gigantic ship in the Suez Canal. Yeah. And then we'll just put like, your CRM process, and then the bulldozer is your team's bandwidth to basically show that your team doesn't have time to do the thing. And then we just get into the offer after that. I think it just has something to do with making people smile. I think it's what works about it. Yeah.
And when I was doing a pod with Andy Mewburn, I think is his last name, from Austin, runs Distribute. Shout out Andy. He calls it the humanization of cold emails. And it's like, what can you say in this cold email to just make it seem so human and not try to be that sales guy, that marketer, like just human. And I think that was like one thing that in my head, I was like, guys, like to all our team, I was like, guys, we got to figure out how not to send typical cold emails like we were for the last year. It's not saying that, hey, we got to figure out how to do all this crazy AI stuff. It's like, how can we just make this seem a human wrote it 1-to-1 and is genuinely trying to help.
And actually from Andy, we learned he wanted to send emails, and in his second email, he wanted to say PS. No, he like put his signature and PS, if this isn't relevant to you, feel free to tell me to pound sand. And I was like, okay, man, beautiful. The amount of people who were like, oh, that's so funny, I won't tell you to pound sand. And I was like, oh, wow, that really worked. And then we'll suggest that for customers, and people are like, this is really weird. We really don't want to send it. I'm like, please just try it. I'm just telling you.
My favorite thing to do to get a client to buy in is we just tell them, hey, let's split test it. And now it's so easy to split test inside of Smartly, just A/B, optimize, whatever, right? And then we're just like, hey, give us your copy. We'll split test it. Or we'll run a copy where we don't have that and we'll split test it. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. But allow us to split test it. And they always will be like, okay, fine. I'll give you guys a shot.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that.
And I think that's the right way to go about it. So flip of subjects and flip a topic. And this is something that I struggle with a lot. So obviously both of us running lead gen agencies, we see so many different businesses and so many different offers and how the market receives it and everything of that sort. Have you, like outside your lead gen agency, have you considered any other like businesses that you want to run or offers that you want to run?
Yeah. As a rule, I force myself to stay focused. Like I just don't even entertain anything. But I do tell my wife all the time that if we were to start if cold email were to be illegal tomorrow and everything got shut down, my next company, the fulfillment is just going to be like straight up, like I'm just going to take out garbage or something. Like, because what keeps me up at night is even though we might have done everything we said we were going to do for the customer, they still don't get leads and they're
Yeah.
still not happy, and that really it keeps me up at night. And so I had a couple of ideas because we get a lot of inbound of people who just want us to build clay tables for them. So
Hmm.
there is a world where we could just pivot and we could just become a clay table agency. I've thought about running LinkedIn ads as well because you could use a lot of the
Yeah.
same skills you use for cold email to just run in LinkedIn ads. And then the other thing too is I would focus more on current customers of people instead of, so there's some people who have 20,000 customers and they need to know that their customer success team should reach out to somebody. Can you hear my dog in the background, by the way?
It's super polite. You
She'll
said
be
it.
out pretty
I thought
soon.
it was your chair.
Yeah, and not she. So they'll have 20,000 customers and they need to know, okay, this customer is time to reach out to them because they're hiring an SDR and this is a perfect time for us to expand into the account. And so I've also thought about doing something like that and just getting out a cold email, but I don't even evaluate any other ideas because I'm just like super focused on just
Yeah.
this is what we're going to do and here's how we're going to do it. But those things are small pivots. I could keep my current team and we could just go to zero and then I could just rebuild that and it would be total
100.
fine. But if I were to do a full pivot and just completely get away from it, I would open up kids gymnastics gyms. That was the first job I had in high school. So
Uh-huh.
crazy. Not in
Oh,
high
good.
school, college. It was the first job I had. And dude, they're just money printers. If you could just figure out how to get people into the gym, you have to pay one coach who gets paid $20 an hour. All the kids are paying like $30 per class. You could do 8 kids per class. It takes a lot of investment for the equipment, but yeah, I would probably do a gymnastics
Wh-
gym.
How would you tackle going to market with that?
Facebook ads. It was actually one of my first like marketing experiences. If you literally just put up a Facebook ad of just, hey, mothers of Paramus, New Jersey, gymnastics classes after school, register now. Like that, you get leads. Like that's the only thing you have to
Hmm.
do. It's because local business marketing is in some ways easier than nationwide like SaaS marketing, and in some ways harder. So in one way, you only have a certain amount of people you can market to. But in the other way, like you're right there and they need a gymnastics gym and that kind of thing. So yeah, like literally one of my first marketing experiences was I just did that. And the owner of the gym was like, wow, people are actually messaging us. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to hear. I think like whenever I think of another business to start, and you know, obviously I've started a lot during Rebirth and shut down some and everything of that sort. I think there's, and I would love your take on this. Recently, we just hired a BDR. We've been building out our BDR program internally just to set more appointments for our sales team.
I see
And
you talking about that on Twitter. Yeah.
yeah, and it's actually one of those things where I'm like, wow, this is something that could work so well. And I think the landscape is shifting in some degree because, so if you think about the issue with BDR teams, it's just like call centers in general and starting it and making it successful. It's like you have a high overhead because you have to have the entire space. Then it's like the person, so it's very people heavy, the equipment for them. And then past that, data was way more expensive, like actual phone number data was expensive. And then the technology wasn't there to run like really good like power dialers and be able to have that to be cheap and affordable and all that. And now I think about it and I'm like, dude, all of those things are no longer relevant in today's time. Phone number data, super cheap to get, find email, lead magic, either one. You can run a remote call center, in my opinion. Like, why could we not just get everybody on a Zoom call and just watch them all day long and then watch their call recordings and assess them by that? Because that's what you would do in person outside of the coaching, right? And then with a power dialer, Salesfinity, great options, pretty affordable. You can run in and build it on top of that. And then with people, obviously, like offshore talent has gotten way better in the last 3 years, and it's only going to get better. And like English is obviously like the language that everyone's consistently getting better at. Like you're going to be able to find more English speaking natural talent in India, Philippines, South Africa, South America, more and more as time goes on. And so I was thinking about it and I was like, I feel like a remote call center is a super good offer. And this is actually a really cool feature that Salesfinity just dropped. So basically what they do, and then do you know Robbie from, I think his company's called Scale with Sales?
I feel like I've heard of this before,
He,
but okay. Yeah.
yeah, so he's Mo's partner. And so one thing he was telling me that works really well in his like BDR program is he's running his outbound calls and then they're using a parallel dialer. Anybody that doesn't pick up, they get a ringless voicemail that's automated. And in the ringless voicemail, what he says is like, hey, my name is blah, blah, blah. And it gives him like the soft pitch, soft intro. And he's, hey, I sent you an email with the subject line, purple monkeys with more information. Check it out. It might be in your spam folder. And if you're interested, reply back there and we can schedule something, right? And then it inside of Salesfinity, you can automate whenever they don't pick up to send them an email and add them to a cold email
Right.
campaign and literally just have that. And I was like, and then so they're releasing that feature next week. And I'm like, oh, dude, we're about to rip on our VDR program. It's like we're
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
ringless voicemails, but the actual like sending of the email and doing that entire function, like that's gonna rip. And I think right now, like a lot of people are trying to figure out how to scale cold email, which is totally cool. I think a lot of people do it bad. I still to this day have gotten less than maybe 5 to 10 personalized good cold emails, but I think like cold calling is coming back. What are your thoughts on running that?
One, I can just feel all of the hardcore cold callers who hate cold email just being like, "We told you," and I can just
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
feel the hate coming. So one that I agree. I think there are. So you're having a lot of success with it. In the early days of my agency, we had a possibility where we could add on cold calling as into our services as well too. I actually have done before I started my agency. I did more cold calling than I actually did cold emailing. So I
Mm,
was actually like ready for that. And the one thing that there was two things that I couldn't get past. One is I haven't picked up a cold call since 2020, since COVID. I have
yeah,
not picked up a cold call. So like you will just never be able to get me. But that's another thing for people listening. You got to keep in mind too, is there's some people who they respond to LinkedIn messages and they don't respond to anything else. There's
yep,
people who respond to cold emails. They don't respond to anything else. Like there's people who pick up the phone and they don't respond to anything else. So
agree.
like every channel has the people that are going to be picking up. That's where I think companies like Phone Ready Leads is probably a must have
Yeah,
in some like to just know
that's
that
a
you're going
great
to be
point.
getting a really high connect rate.
Hmm.
Like it's worth it. The math works. Joey does a great job of posting and making sure that
Yeah,
look, this is what your math looks like. There's no reason not to be using. Well, now they're good Titan X or something
Titan.
now. And so there was that. And then the other thing that I would just be concerned about, because you could totally go to market there. The only thing I'd be concerned about is like, then you got to become a recruiting machine. And then what
Yeah.
happens if you lose 5 customers? You don't have people for that customer,
Mm,
for those people to go to. And then what you got to do? You got to let them go. And then you get 5 new customers, and you got to bring them back. And I didn't like that fluctuation
agreed.
there. But there's tons of people who've done great with call centers. Tito, one of the guys
Yeah,
on,
yes.
he's made his entire life's fortune on cold calling, and his team is so great at it. And that's, I would say, the only thing I want to cap off this conversation with is I'm a big fan of copying business models and just seeing
Yeah.
what works and then putting your own twist on things. Even like the whole reason I'm in a cold email agency now is because Jesse Ouellette got me into it. And then this is where we are now. And so I remember being in college, being in business school, and when you were supposed to come up with business ideas and plans and all these other things, everyone would make up these crazy businesses. And now I just want to go back to one of those business schools and just be like, look, that's not like, do not invent your first business. You should not invent anything. Your
Agreed.
first business, you should just like whatever your like parents do or whatever you're the closest to that you can just see or you've done before, you should just do that. And so anyway, so yeah, totally. If you want to do it, I support you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So touching on that as well, though, I feel like lead gen agencies, a cold email lead gen specifically, have become very popularized. So I think like the trend during COVID as well as like pre-COVID was like the typical like marketing agency, the SMMA. Everyone was dropping courses. I think it was like that and drop shipping. And now it's running Facebook ads for Mets balls. That's a hard business model. Not many people want to do that anymore. And now selling paper lead appointment or paper appointment lead gen via cold email, super easy to sell. And so like the whole market and everyone is pushing courses and teaching people how to build lead gen agencies in there. What are your thoughts on that? Just like how popular it's gotten and what it's done to the space.
Yeah, it's definitely a factor of instantly breaking the internet
Agreed.
with their offer. And because data is going to zero too. Because when you think about it, so when I buy an email address with credits on Apollo and you buy it, there's no marginal cost for them to resell all those credits. And Jeff Bezos says, your margin is my opportunity, right? And so I can see a day when somebody is going to do an instantly version of the data market and they're going to drop phenomenally good data for free and totally screw up the market in some ways. And so all of this definitely had to do with instantly making it much easier to do and much
Yeah.
cheaper. Because QuickMail, before that, we were using QuickMail and it was like $30 per account you wanted to have
Yeah.
in there. Scaling was really tough. And so instantly definitely broke the market on this. I guess what I would say is I would be lying to my former self if I said it was a bad thing, because I think that running a lead gen agency, if you have the skills to do it, and as long as you're transparent with people and you're doing the right thing by people and you're always trying to do good, I think there's an infinite market for people and you can constantly, I don't think there's going to be such thing as too many lead gen agencies.
Okay.
There might be something to be said about with all these lead gen agencies, we've created our own problem where now Google spam filters are updating because Instantly has come out and because Smart Lead has come out and all these other things. That's probably true. And that is just what comes with it. As far as for people who want to start their own lead gen agency, if you want to make $10,000 or $20,000 a month, I don't know a better business model to
Agreed.
get in, as long as you have the skills to be able to do so. I'm definitely not going to sit here and say it's a bad thing, because
Agreed.
I'm sitting in a house that I bought with cold email, but it's definitely something you just got to be aware of. We just know there's a lot of competition, and you just got to take necessary steps to differentiate yourself from people, and also to just not bash other agencies. Like when people say like this agency was so bad, I'm always like, all right, hold on. They were trying as hard as they could. Most likely, it's not like they were, unless they were truly scammers, they were probably trying as hard as they could. What really happened? And then we like dig into it from there. So yeah, on net, probably a good thing. We'll see in 5 years what it does to spam filters and all that. But yeah.
No, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think one thing it's done is made me level up because the space is growing so fast. It's like
That's
you
true.
have to
For
figure
sure.
out how to get better. I think for a lot of people in the space, like they think of it, and it's like the classic thing, right? Like whenever I really started seeing all these internet businesses and I tried my way, it was like, hey, I want to just figure out how to make quick money, right? And like a lot of those people that are in the space and they think this as like a simple cash cow and they can make some money right now and be good. It hardly ever happens. And those guys always get wiped down and they all move on to the next shiny business model that they want.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, there's still a lot of opportunity for people to get into the space and grow really substantial businesses. And I think like a lot of the established like businesses in the space, yourself being including in that, mine as well, and some of these other guys that we know, I think it's going to be easy for us to weather the storms that are coming, because I think the spam filters are going to get really hard. And I think that we've established such a strong foundation, not even on like our sales front or marketing front, from like a process point, like how we actually service and deliver our customers, how we go about managing a team to make sure they get the results, how we manage like pivoting quick on email info, like all those things that you just don't get until you get experience doing it, is like what is going to allow us to weather the storm versus others. And so yeah, I think I was speaking to, I can't remember who I was speaking to. I was speaking to somebody and they're like, aren't you scared of all these competition getting into the space? And I'm like, not at all. I've been doing it longer than all these guys, and we have some of the greatest systems on our back end and greatest ops and greatest people on our team. And not only that, we have the funds because we've been building this little treasure chest to be able to not be profitable for 8 months or not make a single dollar for 8 months and still be around. Not many businesses can do that. And so it's just like all those type of things that it makes me like, I'm not really scared. I'm not really worried, as long as I'm in the steering the ship and I'm able to figure out all these things to make sure our clients get results. I don't think we'll ever be in a bad spot, God willing. And that's what makes me happy, though. I'm excited for all these guys to get in the space, because it's a hard business, and any business is hard, but it really does make us have to level up, because it's like you have to learn that next thing and you have to always stay on top of the next thing. Otherwise, you could get crushed. And it helps sharpen that like competitive edge of ours. That's what I like about it a lot.
Yep. Totally agreed.
Awesome. We'll end with this. I actually want to do two, because I know I sent you a huge list of topics and we're probably running out of time. And so we'll probably have to do a two-step call, which I'd be super down to do. One of the things I wanted to talk about with you was just like, what would you say is like the craziest, random, most experiment or cold email campaign that you've ran? Because like you do some of, obviously I speak to a lot of guys in the lead gen space. Did you run some of the craziest campaigns in terms of just, you're just so creative with, I'm going to pull this data point, I'm going to pull this data point, and then I'm going to do some crazy mismatch, and then I'm going to separate it to my copy and put it. Dude, what's the craziest one you've ran?
See, so one, I super appreciate that, especially coming from you, of somebody that like we learned so much from. I would say the craziest campaigns that we run are the, like, I guess I call them trigger waterfalls, where because most campaigns are easy by themselves, but then there's like crazy ones that if you're launching like 12 different campaigns from a clay table, that gets really crazy. So I guess that's something like that. One thing we've done for one company that it works really well, but it took a ton of effort, was scraping the Facebook ad library for the current ad that somebody was running. And then we were screenshotting it and sending it to them in there. That was just crazy from a technical perspective, just from all the proxies and everything, but it's not that creative. It's literally, we just took the email and we just pushed it. Man, I'm trying to think of anything. I guess one of the craziest things that we've worked on as well is for my own outbound, which, I mean, we're very fortunate that we don't really have to run outbound. I don't know if I should say fortunate, because I've been posting every day on LinkedIn for 5 years. So it also just came from this.
Up, yeah.
Yeah. It's what I figured out how to do was to send a cold email where I would basically be offering people lists of like free lead list of 5,000 people. And we use Clay to look at who they would be targeting and who they would want to be selling to. And then I use Clayagent to go out and find people in their ICP that fit. And then in the email, I would say, hey, I was doing research and I saw you want to connect with like CEOs, founders, and leaders of companies. And I saw that the companies you want to target are banks or whatever it might be. I found 3 leads for you already. And then we would send the person's name, the title, the LinkedIn profile, their work email address, and their mobile phone number in the email. And we'd send 3 of them. And we'd say, these are 3 leads I've already pulled for you. If you have any edits for these or these look good, let me know and I'll pull 5,000 of them for free. That was another campaign that like took forever to set up, but that worked really well for us.
That's hilarious. I remember, I think I got that cold or you told me about it. I can't remember which.
What? Yeah.
And I was like, dude, there's no way in how I'm going to figure out how to do all this on my own unless I pull in my CTO. So I was like, I'm just going to send people an email saying, hey, we do leads on a pay-per-lead basis. You want me to build you a lead list of 5,000 plus people? And it worked, but it was, we totally ripped that from you.
No, and so one, love the shout out. I'm glad it worked for you. But that's the other thing that we've learned too is like I used to do crazy things. And that's why it's even hard for me to think of right now because we used to do crazy things and we still do crazy things right now. Like we're even like we have Feedly.ai right now set up to find like clinical trial announcements and then we only email them with the clinical trial and we're sending the screenshot of the news story and everything. Mm-hmm. It's way easier to send screenshots of TechCrunch than it is other things. And so anyway, still do crazy things, but I guess what I'm getting so much more focused on is returning back to the basics because I can't tell you how many times I would spend 6 hours setting up a campaign and then the messaging wasn't right and it just didn't even matter. And so what we even tell our customers now too is let's find the messaging that works. And then when you want to go crazy, we can go crazy, but let's find that messaging first. And so like that company we're doing the clinical trial thing for, they came to us and they said, all right, you win. Our SDRs aren't going to send emails anymore because you've gotten so many more responses than we have. They're just going to do cold calling. We want to take it a step further. And then we're like, okay, perfect. Let's talk about how it can go crazy. But so, and that's a perfect example of I went nuts doing that. But the most important part of the message was just the 5,000 free leads. And I didn't think that was going to work because I get messages of like 5,000 free leads and I just never respond to them. And I guess I was doing my own bias thinking where I don't need 5,000 free leads. I have all the leads already. And that's just another perfect example of how sometimes we take it too far. And I'll admit that. So you don't even have to take it that complicated.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point though. It's going back to the fundamentals and figuring out how you can execute that at a high level. And that's one of the things that like, I feel like at Leadbird, we've done a really good job of. It's, I think to me, fundamentals, right? A simple one that I hardly see any lead gen agencies do, as well as just like people that are sending cold emails. It's like cleaning the company name, not saying Leadbird LLC or Growth Engine X LLC, just saying Leadbird, or making the title normal. Instead of saying chief executive officer, saying CEO. No one's going to email someone and say, hey, I saw they're the chief executive officer at X. They're just going to say, so it's like simple things like that. We've made it to where it's like easy. Like we built an entire API for it to where we could run our list through it automatically when we scrape it to be able to do that stuff. And it's past that. It's what's a stupid personalization that we could do. Always grab the reference of the colleague, grab the quick lines, just like all those things, like the fundamentals that we can scale. We make sure we do that super hard on every client because I think even if they have a half-baked offer, if you could do that and you could just send enough volume or decent amount of volume, you'll get responses, you'll get positive replies, and you'll get them leads. And then it's once you validate that message, 100% agreed. It's now let's go make it all crazy. Yeah.
And so, and another one I'll give you too, that maybe you guys can start using this as well, is we also find it works really well. Because I always tell people the AI that you use in your campaigns should be so specific to your campaigns that if you were to give it to anybody else, the only people who would find it valuable is your competitors. And this is the one like AI thing that is not the case. One of the best performing AI campaigns that we'll run for people is we will either send 3 ideas as bullet points of how we could help their company, or we'll just send 1 idea. And so we just train AI on what their company does. So then when it reviews the company, like the prospect that we're going to reach out to, we could say something like, hey, on your website, I saw this case study about blah, blah, blah. How would you like to get more case studies just like them? Not sure if it's fit, but we're helping companies like Reddit and ClickUp run their outbound campaigns. Specifically, I think we can help you connect with more VPs of finance in order to help them do XYZ. And then that line right there, that works really well for us where we just train it like this is what our, because that's another thing. What would a human say? Okay, I'm a human. I'm going to say, like, I can help you in this specific way. So then we train the AI on what your company does so that when it sees the prospect's company, it can come up with something. And then we'll write 4 or 5 manually because it's super cheap to do that in 4.0 mini. We'll write 4 or 5 of them manually so that it looks good on the for the email. And that's just another one that just works all the time. And it's not even, and it just That's another one anybody can take and just start using.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cool, dude. This was great. We just spoke for an hour and 30. We're such nerds. We just spoke about cold emails for an
Yeah,
hour
and
and 30.
I could even keep going. Like, yeah, we
Dude,
can.
I could too. But I want to make this two parts so people actually watch it all the way through.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you guys found value in this, go spam Eric's LinkedIn. Say that you enjoyed this, and then he'll reach out to me and we'll schedule the part 2. Because I sent him a list of things I wanted to speak about. I think we spoke about 3 out of the 12 on here.
Yeah,
So
I
there's
know.
still,
Yeah,
still so much to talk about.
yeah, and when you sent me that list, I was like, dude, this is maybe the best list that anybody has sent me. And then he was like, yeah, I really want to nerd out about this. So I was like, all right, man, let's rip. So
we'll
yeah,
definitely we'll definitely have to do a part 2. But before we leave, is there anything you want to plug or anything that you want to just say as like a final note?
I would want to plug that Export List built by Nick is a really great product.
Sick.
And if you're looking for pay-per-lead leads, go to Leadbird. And then if you want us to run your campaigns for you as well, you could try. But Nick is the operational king on this. There's nothing really for me to plug, man. I've learned so much from you. It's just great that we can connect at this level now. And I can't wait to do another part 2.
Appreciate that. I wanted you to shout yourself out, but
I know.
Hey, appreciate the love. Dude, thank you so much. Hope you have a great weekend. And yeah, we'll get part 2 going.
Absolutely.